Okay, hello, this is Ufoma here. In response to the question, I'm going to I'm going to set up a continuous integration pipeline to show a way of cutting cost in your CI/CD jobs. So, for example, what do I mean by that? For example, there is no need for you to spin, other servers and then incur more costs when you're building your CI/CD. For example, there is a Java application that you need to build. You can also use a Dockerized container, a Maven Dockerized container as an ephemeral slave, a Jenkins slave, to run that build and deploy the artifact as a container in whatever container registry you choose. So I'm going to use Docker Hub in this case. I'm going to use sonarqube to run to scan the code. I'm going to also use GitHub as my SCM tool. So I don't want to talk much. I have a list of steps that I guarantee you that if you follow step by step the process, you will be able to complete this integration part of the job, the project. I want to give special thanks to Abhishek, who's who's been really helpful in providing this project for us to partake in. So let's go. The first thing you need to do is to spin an EC2 container. So I'm here on my AWS account. So I'll spin an EC2 container, and then I'll use Ubuntu for this one, and then we'll go from there. So while that opens, I have 23 steps that are itemized that will help us complete the integration process. So before I do that, let's just go ahead and just launch an instance. I'll call it a Jenkins job. I'll check Ubuntu. Every time you're running CI/CD jobs, it's better you use not lower than the T2 medium. It's always good so that your jobs don't hang. So we take that, and then I'll take my key pair and I'll set up a security group, a firewall. In this time, I already have a firewall that I've opened up, all traffic just for the purpose of this project. In the real time, you open only the ports that are necessary, and then in your storage, it's good to take between 20 to 30 gig because you're going to be installing a lot of files. So we'll launch our instance, and then go to our instance. Great. So I'll come to my terminal. I'm actually using Mac, so I'll clear this. So what you do here, because we're using Ubuntu, so our user will be Ubuntu. USSH -I, and then that's my key pair, which is located on my desktop. And then I'm waiting for the public IP to come up, and then I'll put it there. It's up, I know, but I just want the instance to run, to be on a running state. Okay, great. And then I can now copy this. So we SSH into our instance. And we're going to do everything with the Ubuntu user. We're not going to go into root, because in a real life situation, production environment, nobody's going to give you access to root. So you better start getting used to it. So let's go back to let's go back to our write-up here. I don't know if I can increase. Let's bring it back. So I'm going to put this in the comment in the comment section when I upload the video. So the first thing we're going to do is update the package manager, and then we go over to install Java because it's a Java-based project, and you want to install Jenkins. You need Java for Jenkins. We're going to use Java 11 in this case, JDK 11, and then the next thing we're going to do is to add and save Jenkins package sign-in key. We need that so that we can bring in the Jenkins package repository, So then after those two steps, we're going to now update the package manager so that this will be fully integrated into our operating system. And then we install Jenkins. Once that is done, we locate Jenkins, the admin password for Jenkins, so that we can access Jenkins on the web browser. And then once we do that, we enter the password, and then we take our public IP and we log in on port 8080, and then we input our Jenkins password to gain access into Jenkins. And then the admin, once we are done with that, it will prompt us to install suggested plugins. Yeah, it's good to accept that, and then we'll set up a username and password. You can change it. You can keep your default username and password, which is admin, right? And then we navigate to manage Jenkins, select plugins, add Docker pipeline, and sonarqube scanner, because we're going to be using those two tools for this integration process, to build and then to scan the code, and then we restart Jenkins. Always make it a practice to restart Jenkins whenever you do any configuration in Jenkins. And then we'll come back to the CLI, we update the package manager and install Docker, and then we'll pull so that we can pull our maven image, as our Jenkins ephemeral slave. So remember, we're not going to use a physical, a virtual server, that will, cost us some money. We're going to be using an ephemeral slave. And the good thing about this is that it just pulls in and starts the container, and then when the whole job is done, it exits. So you don't have to keep a server running, right? And after Docker installation, we'll navigate to the root, and then we add Docker and Ubuntu as group members to our Docker group, right? And then we'll start Docker daemon. So here we now need to create a sonarqube user. So right, because we want sonarqube installation to be owned by the user, right? So we don't want any conflict. So once we do that, then we log into that user, and then we install sonarqube, right? And then once we are done with that, we can now start sonarqube. Once it's started, we come to the browser and log in with as usual, with our server public IP, but this time on port 9000, right? So that's what we'll do there. And then the next step is, once we have Jenkins up, we have sonarqube up, we are going to now begin the process of integrating all the tools that Jenkins needs to interact with, right? This is what it is. So what we now do, we integrate our GitHub, where we have our repository. We integrate our container registry, in this case Docker Hub, from where we need to pull that image, who will be the ephemeral Jenkins slave. And then we will integrate our sonarqube scanner, which is our code analysis tool, so that it can scan the code and tell us if there are any vulnerabilities or security issues, and whatever code smells, and then we set up that we integrate all of them with their various credentials. Once that is done, it's always a good practice to restart Jenkins, and then we can now go ahead and build our pipeline. Remember, before you get to this point, your Jenkins file should be, probably should be ready. I have this already from Vanilla, so we're going to run it that way. So we start building our pipeline, and I said we'll also update the Jenkins file to reflect our sonarqube IP address before we run the job, because if you check the Jenkins file, you see the sonarqube IP address will be different from this one that we're going to do. So you have to take note of that. In the production environment practice, you don't expose your IP address like that, but we're just going to use it for the purpose of this project, and then we'll run the job. So what's going to be our expected outcome? So we expect that the artifact is going to be eventually pushed to Docker Hub, bearing the build number as our tag. And in our Jenkins file, we have configured the build number to be our tag. So the image name remains the same, but what changes is our tag, and that tag differentiates one build from the other. It also differentiates one image pushed to Docker Hub from the other from the next image. So what we did here is, if you go to the repository, you would see that the Docker Hub is actually, our manifest file contains the image name, but then what is going to be changing is going to be the tag, right? So this is just the whole procedure. This is the integration, continuous integration part of our CI/CD process. We're not going to be using webhook in this case. We're just going to do our manual build of our code. All right, let's go. So updating package manager, I have all the commands here, and I'm going to still run them through with you. I'm going to put them also in my GitHub. You can easily fork them from the repository and use it. So we're going to install, update the package manager, and then install Java. I'll take those two. If you notice, I'm using sudo so that we don't have any issues. While that is going on, I will take the package manager sign-in key for Jenkins, and also the package manager repo for Jenkins. I'm going to impute that also once it's done, so we can successfully install Jenkins. Great. So we can now impute those two. We're done with that. The next thing is to now update the package manager and then install Jenkins. Sorry. All these commands, you can actually put them as a script and run them as a script, but we're just doing it step by step so that you can follow. We'll go on to the next. The next thing is what we're going to do here is to we're going to get this information. You will also find it in your Jenkins GUI when you go to the browser. But yeah, this command, we want to cat the password. We want to know the initial admin password, right? So we're going to do that once this is done, and then we go to the GUI to log into Jenkins. Great. So let's do this. Great. So this is our initial admin password, right? So if you don't want to go back to your browser, you don't want to go back to your Jenkins browser, you don't want to go there. Your AWS, your EC2, you don't want to go there to get your to get your IP address, you can use this command. I'll also put it for you to see. To get our IP address. Okay, let's go to sudo. Let's go back and get sudo. Yeah, so this is our IP address. We'll copy this and we'll use port 8080, and then we'll come back. Once Jenkins is up, we'll come back and pick this initial password. Right, so we're here. Let's take one tab and I'll enter the IP and use port 8080. Yeah, I want you to see that. So here we are. So this is just basically what we did. We just did a cut on this, and then we got that. We got the password right here. So I'm going to copy that, and we're going to paste it here to access Jenkins. So yeah, so here is what I told you. Install suggested plugins, you remember? So we're going to click that. So we've updated package manager. We've installed Java JDK 11. We've added Jenkins signing key and the package repository. We've updated the package manager again. We've installed Jenkins. We've located Jenkins admin password. We've accessed Jenkins server with our public IP and on port 8080. And then we've entered the initial admin password, right? And we are now allowing suggested plugin download. So this is number 9. We are going to now set up a username and password for Jenkins, right? Remember the default is admin. So no, the default is admin, sorry. So I'm going to use my own password. So the username is admin. I'm going to just use whatever password there for the purpose, and then I'll hit save and continue. Yeah, so if you want to give you have your own URL, you can take this and go to Route 53 on AWS and get a proper domain registration done. So, but this is it. So we are getting into Jenkins. Good. Let's check where we are. So yeah, so we're into Jenkins. So now we're going to go to manage Jenkins and select plugins, because what we want to do now is to install 2 plugins that will allow the integration of containers and scanning tools. So those 2 plugins are Docker pipelines and sonarqube scanner. Yeah, these 2 will allow integration with Jenkins. So we're going to do that. Remember, once you do such installations, it's good to restart your Jenkins. Okay, so let's check. It's still installing. Okay, I don't know what's taking time. Okay, so while that's still pending, which is strange, we'll go ahead. All right, while it's still pending, we'll go ahead now and we will we're going to now start installing Docker itself. Right, we install the Docker, we'll bring it. Let's see the number here. We restarted Jenkins. We've not restarted, but we'll just leave that and move ahead. Let's update the package manager and install Docker so we can pull our maven image as our Jenkins ephemeral slave. So let's go to our CLI and install Docker. Okay, so here is where we are. We'll update the package manager and then we'll install Docker. While that is going on, we'll be ready for the next 3 steps. That is, we add Ubuntu and Jenkins to our Docker group so they can use files and they can use files in Docker. Great. So we go to our root. And then we add Jenkins and Ubuntu. Great, we are done. So what we're going to do next, we'll create a sonarqube user, right? And then we will install sonarqube in that user space, right? So we're going to use we're first going to install on zip because we're going to download the binary file as a zip. So we'll unzip before we add user. So let's go. I'll use this. Okay, so I'll take my add user. I'll give my password. Great. So we've registered a new user. So we're going to move to that user, sonarqube. Great. So here we're going to now install our sonarqube package. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to download the package, unzip it, and remove the zip file once we're done. and then we're going to change. This is just a practice, right? Change ownership, and give permissions to so we can run those files. We can start sonarqube, right? So I'm going to give those permissions and with those commands. Great. And then we're going to cd into the very folder where you have the script, sonarqube script, and then we'll start sonarqube and check the status. Yeah, sonarqube is running. So now what we have to do is to get into the browser and check sonarqube at the public IP. We have a public IP already here, and we'll use 9000 as our port. Great, sonarqube is loading. So I don't know why this is pending, but what I'll do here, I'll go back to my Jenkins. I'll come back to manage Jenkins. I'll go to my installed plugins and check. Okay, it's there. So it's there. Okay, great. But for some reason, I don't know why it didn't show that it was done. I'm just going to go ahead and do something. Once my sonarqube is up, I'm going to do some integration between sonarqube, Docker Hub, and GitHub with Jenkins. So once that is done, then I'll restart Jenkins. Let's check. Okay, let's look at what we have left. Yeah, so this whole part is the deployment, the integration part, which we have pretty much done all the installation we need to do. Okay, so if I come here, let's look for, yeah, we're at number 18, right? Once we are done with sonarqube, then we'll start our integration process. Okay, let's go to home. Great. Admin. Admin. Old password. New password. We'll just change our password so that it's easy and quick for the purpose of this project. And so what we're going to do now is to start the integration process. What are we integrating? We're integrating sonarqube, Docker Hub, and GitHub to Jenkins. So I'll come here to my account and go to security. Let's enter a token so that we can use that to generate. We use that to create integration between Jenkins and sonarqube. So we'll come to manage Jenkins. We'll come to credentials. We'll click system, global credentials, and then add credentials. So here we're going to use a secret text because it's a token, right? We're going to enter our sonarqube text. We're going to call these sonarqube, and then we're going to create. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to use, let's integrate with Docker Hub. With Docker Hub, we're going to use our username and password. So my username is this, and my password is this. And we're going to call this the ID Docker cred. The name you put in your ID must be referenced in your Jenkins file. If not, your job will fail. Right? We're going to add GitHub also. So we're going to use a token for GitHub. And we're going to call it GitHub because we're going to reference the same name in our Jenkins file. So for GitHub, let's get to GitHub. Yeah, this is my repo. Great. So you come here to your account, you go to settings, you go down to developer settings, and then you come to your personal access token and take your tokens classic, and then I have two already here. They're already in my so you can generate any of them, any token. You can revoke this and generate new token, right? And then so let me generate a new token, right? You come to token classic, my password, is for Jenkins, right? Okay, and I'll select all that I need to give it complete access, which is not the case in the production environment. Just go ahead and generate token. So here is the token. I'm going to copy this, and then I'm going to go back to my Jenkins and paste it as a secret text, and then I'll create. So I have my sonarqube, my Docker, and Docker Hub and my GitHub integrated with Jenkins via credentials, right? So I can come back now and restart my Jenkins. It always gives me this restarting issue. I always see that cron thing. I've been able to solve it, but you know, let's move on. We'll wait while Jenkins is restarting. We can go back to our sonarqube. So we are okay here. I'll also bring in my Docker Hub account. Okay, we're ready. Okay, this is my repository. The last time I pushed an image here is 2 days ago. So we're going to see, I'm going to still use the same image name, and then we're going to watch for the last day, the time of the last push. So let's see where we are now. So our Jenkins is up, so we go straight to building, setting up our pipeline. So we'll click on new item. Let's give it Jenkins. We'll choose a pipeline option, and then we hit OK. Great. We'll just leave okay. Let's just put some description. Okay, I just put that for you to know what this is basically what we're doing, what we've been doing. Okay, so we scroll down, and under pipeline script, we'll take source code. We'll select SCM, and the SCM is Git because we've been using, that's what we're using. And then we'll go ahead and take the URL of our repository. So I want to come back to my GitHub. Great. I'll copy my repository address, put it there. It's public. Actually, this repo is public, so I'm not going to use any credentials there. And then my branch is not, let's check our branch. If it's master on main, okay, it's in the main branch. It's called main. So we need to change this. If you don't change this, your job will fail. Great. And then we come down to our Jenkins script path. Where's our Jenkins file? We'll go back to our GitHub. Our Jenkins file is here. And here, so that's where our Jenkins file is. So that's it. This is the path. So when we hit copy, it will pick these two paths. Right? You hit copy, and then we'll go to our Jenkins file, web, and then we'll put that and put your, don't forget to put your /. We can apply, and then we'll save changes. The next thing we're going to do is to we'll locate our Jenkins file and make changes to our URL, so that this is the URL actually. We'll make changes to the sonarqube URL. I'm just going to do it here, right? Ordinarily, you're supposed to do it from your IDE, like VS Code, you know. So this is our sonar URL has to change to reflect the correct URL. Right. So that's where we are here. We'll commit changes. Great. So here in this manifest folder, we have our deployment, our manifest file, and our service.yaml. In this deployment file has our image name and the build number, which will keep changing. So I'm going to fill deliberately the next two, the first two builds, so that we can get to build 3, and then you'll see how it updates this manifest file here. All that is already entered into your Jenkins file. That's why we're using this set command to change the build to the whatever current build it is on our manifest file should be replaced with the current build number if the build succeeds. Right now it's showing 5, so it won't work. So I need to also edit and change that to 2, because on our manifest file what we have there is build 2. So I have to change this to 2 also. Right? If you get this repository, the things you have to change are stuff like this, and then your repo, your GitHub credentials and all that stuff. Things that pertain to you, that's what you change, right? So I'll commit. When we are done running the job, I'll deliberately fill the job 2 times, and then we'll do the third one so that it will be the build number 3, and then we'll go and check here to see if it actually changed the build, the image. So we'll come back to our Jenkins, and then for the job to run, we're going to, for the job to fail, let's go back to our Jenkins pipeline. We'll configure, and then just change the Jenkins file and the name so that it will fail. Great. So we'll come back down to the end. I'll just put S there and save. So we'll build. Oh, it failed. Couldn't find Jenkins. If you couldn't find the name Jenkins files. We'll build again. Good. So 2 builds are gone. Right? Let's change it back to Jenkins file. I just want you to see how the build number is updated. Let's remove the S, apply, save it, and then let's check the build now. Okay, so there's a build going on right now. Great. We've gone through the checkout. This whole process, you could do this for 50, 60, 100, 200 builds that will fail, before you be able to get it, right? So don't just think this one is, it's pulling the image right now, right? If we go back to, let's go here and I'll show you console output. Great, it's progressing. Now I'll show you also something. Let's come to our terminal, right? You see it's pulled the image, right? Let's go to, you see, 30 seconds ago, this image has been containerized and the container has started and it's running the job, right? That's what's going on. So you would see that once the job is completed, it will exit. You won't see that container anymore. Okay. Great. Finished. Success. So it's if you look here, you see build number 3. So it is substituted 2 with 3. Right. So we're going to go back to our Jenkins and check. Wow, everything went seamlessly. This was on the 3rd build. right? So let's go back to our GitHub and check. Now, if we go to go to this springboot app manifest where you have our deployment file, you notice, you see that it's just been updated. The image has been updated to version 3. And if you come down here, you see that it's now version 3. So if we also go to our Docker Hub repository, you would see here, this is the image. Last time it was two days ago. So let's hit repository again. And let's come here and come back. You see, about a minute ago. Are you seeing that? So it's been updated. We have about 12 of them. Let's see. See, about a minute ago, the tag is 3. That's what just came in, right? So this ends the continuous integration process. You see what we've done? It ends that process. What I'll do is to just explain what you have here in the Jenkins pipeline, okay, so that you can understand, because this is like the instruction manual of the whole process. This is what your Docker image is executing, right? So if you're here, you see that our pipeline, the agent is a Docker image, and we are giving arguments like give Jenkins a root user privilege, so that when and then we're attaching the Docker socket in the server to the Docker socket in the image in this container when the container runs, so that Jenkins can talk to the Docker in the container and use can command Docker in the container. Remember, we installed Docker in the server. So this is what we're doing. We're just mounting the socket so that we can access the container, and the host Docker sockets can access one another, right? And then the first stage was the checkout stage. The next stage was the build and test stage. We seeded into the directory where you had the Jenkins file, and we used maven clean package. You know, maven clean means you are wiping out every previous file and, you know, artifact, and then we're packaging a new one. We're doing a new one. That's what that means. And then we go to the static code analysis stage, where we exposed our URL, which we're not supposed to do here. We're supposed to variabilize it. And then in the steps, this is the environment variable. In the steps, we spelled out our credentials, right? Remember, we gave it in Jenkins, we gave it a name, sonarqube. If I had given it another name in Jenkins, it won't work, right? And then we cd'd into the very directory where you had the Jenkins file, and then we carried out so that sonarqube can carry out its tests on the code. Remember, you have where you have in that same location you have your POM XML file. So Jenkins will carry out its tests, right? And then the next stage was a build and push Docker image. Once the test succeeded, it will immediately build the image into the artifact and then push it into our container registry. In this case, it was Docker Hub. So we created a Docker image variable and defined our credential as Docker cred. If you notice, that's what I gave in Jenkins. When we were in Jenkins, I made sure the name was the same. If it were not the same, you will not be able to, it will not run. You see, you had Docker cred, you had sonarqube, and you had GitHub. Any of these names, the ID is very important. If this ID doesn't match what you have in your Jenkins file, it will fail, right? And then the next stage was after the building and pushing. This is what we have not done, the deployment. We're going to use Argo CD to deploy. We did part of this area, but we didn't complete it, right? So we're going to connect Argo CD to our GitHub account, and to the repository, so that Argo CD, once it senses a change in our deployment, in our manifest file, it will pull those changes and then install in your Kubernetes cluster. That's the deployment, continuous deployment process. So we're going to do that in the next video. We're able to update this number 2 and to the next number 3, build number 3. So yeah, so if you like this video, if you think you've learned something from this video, you can follow me, you can like and subscribe, and to encourage me to do more videos. So take care. Thank you very much.